I'm Erica Lynn, and we all know the ocean is the most demanding environment on Earth, consistently testing the reliability and durability of our equipment. When you spend as much time fishing as I do, you know that reliable gear is essential for staying on the water. This is why I went with the Abyss battery to power my trolling motor, electronics, and outboard. The guys at Abyss Battery are rattling the saltwater industry by manufacturing performance marine batteries specifically designed for sonar, outboards, trolling motors, and electronic fishing reels. They're also Bluetooth compatible, so I found checking battery statuses right on your phone while you're out on the water is a huge game changer. To learn more about why Abyss batteries are used by the pros and factory installed by premier boat builders, visit abyssbattery.com.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, so I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Will, and I'm sorry if I butcher this, DeRover.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. And Will, can you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit for the guests listening?
Yes, sir. Well, like you said, Will DeRover, and I'm 24. I live in British Columbia, Canada, and we own a hunting outfitter in Manitoba, which is halfway across Canada. We might get into the how that happened a little later. But so we own a hunting outfitter where we do only black bear hunting. And we're getting into a little bit of whitetail and waterfowl as well, but our focus is black bear. And I also hunt a lot of bears out here in BC. And out of that hunting business came a coffee business called Bear Beans. And that's sort of my main focus right now. We've got a business partner that runs the outfitting side of things, more or less. And I run the coffee company and I have a lot of fun doing it. So thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. And I think what's cool, and we can get into that a little bit, but first I'm kind of excited to talk to you about bears because it's pretty cool. Spring bear season is right around the corner. It'll be here before you know it. Maybe after turkeys, right? But, or at least for us, I don't know. Do you have a lot of turkeys up there?
Oh, nothing.
Probably a lot too many predators, but, so what, how did it come about that you have one halfway across the country up there and our neighbors to the north, that you know, you live in BC, but yet you're going all the way to Manitoba?
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a long story. So I grew up here in British Columbia, and I grew trees growing up. That's my family business, and like hedging cedars and ornamental plants, that type of stuff. And when I was 19, I got married and we moved halfway across the country and bought a dairy farm, actually with a bunch of business partners, and did that for 2 years. It was a super cool experience, and it didn't work out with our partners at the end, but that all turned out all right. And so we took the money from that venture and went into outfitting, which at the time I had absolutely no idea what I was doing with it. I had actually never shot a bear before we bought our bear hunting outfitter, which is kind of bizarre. But our business partner, Brandon, he has tons of experience. He's been guiding for I think like 12 or 15 years before I met him. So he had the experience that we needed to get going. And I think we did that for 2 seasons or so. And then we moved back here to British Columbia. And I would just travel back and forth when the seasons were there. And now that was 2018, so we're going on, it's the 4th year that we've owned Bear Track Outfitters. So it's been quite the ride. And now just this past year is when we started up the coffee thing, and we kind of made a deal because my kids are getting older and stuff, so I don't want to travel as much, that I'm running the coffee side of the business and he runs more of the outfitting.
So I'm kind of curious. Did you hunt before the bear hunting? Was there other hunting involved?
I'm glad you asked that. And the first thing I ever shot was a deer on our dairy farm, which was like a year before we started outfitting. and I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. I'm one of those guys that got into hunting when I was an adult, or well, still a kid, I guess. I was 19, um, but yeah, I definitely didn't grow up hunting. If From that perspective, it was totally new to me. I'd never really been around people that hunted, and I got into it because I was around hunters, and a lot of our friends at church were hunters and stuff like that. That's how I got into it.
So, man, that's fascinating. So, I I love to see this show. I hate the word that people use because they use the word adult onset, and to me, it sounds like a parasitic disease or something, right? Or something that could have been prevented if they just would have taken better care of themselves. And like diabetes or whatever. It's just, it sounds like a dirty word, but I'm fascinated by it, the stories and how people come into it, and then how far they take it. So it's pretty cool. And I just kind of want to know, like, what was your thought process behind it at the time when you shot the deer behind? Was it like, because other people were doing it around you and you just kind of piqued your interest, or was there like a deeper, meaning or notion behind it? Was there something that drove you to that, or what was it?
That's a really good question. I still am not 100% sure how I became so intrigued by hunting. And I think part of it is that the people around me were doing it. But I mean, people around me do a lot of other stuff that I don't do. But yeah, there's just something, it's hard to explain. I mean, as a hunter, I'm sure you'd understand why we hunt, and all the reasons for it, and like providing food, and being part of conservation, and all that stuff. But that kind of came later after I started hunting, to be honest. That's a super good question as to why I took that first shot. I actually don't really know myself.
So, so I'm kind of curious, what were, the emotions afterwards? Do you think you were prepared for what happened? I mean, did you feel it, or was it maybe you actually like butchered other livestock, before then or something, so you were able to deal with that? I mean, because it is it's mortality, right? It's taking a life. It's finite, it's final, and then from then on, I mean, it's paying your homage and respect to that animal by doing the things properly to preserve that meat and do all that. I mean, but what was your kind of mindset then? How did you feel about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we were dairy farmers, so we dealt with cattle all the time, and cattle would die, and so that part of it didn't bother me too much. But for sure, I mean, I can picture it right now, looking through my scope, and it was like, I think like 270 yards away, and out in the like cornfield that was harvested, and this buck was chasing with like 4 or 5 does. It was like the most gorgeous sight ever. It was like early morning, like there was like fog on the field, and it was, I can just picture it so clearly right now. But that the feeling of taking a wild animal, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's just unreal.
Did you
It never
feel
gets old.
did you feel a deeper connection, a sense of feeling that you never felt before with nature and the ecosystem around you? I it's kind of hard to explain, but I feel this primal sense, like something, I'm part of something that came before me that not as many are doing now and potentially after me. It's kind of a
Yeah,
neat feeling.
totally. And like you said, at that deep level, it just feels right. This feels like something we're supposed to do.
Yeah, it probably felt pretty good getting that meat too, and being
Oh
able
yeah,
to provide that for your family too. It's something that I've kind of done for so long that I mean I don't take it for granted, but sometimes I don't really realize the symbolism behind it as much as I did when I first did it. And I try to, but now I've noticed I've got my kids involved, and I've got them
yeah,
helping process the meat, and they love it. And what's funny is they prefer the venison over beef if I'm cooking it or grilling it or something like that, as long as I leave it in the whole muscle groups. If it's ground, they don't care. They don't notice the difference. But they love the deer steaks, the back straps, the tenderloins are always cooked that night or the next day. They never see a freezer. And
nice.
my kids, I sometimes don't even get to hardly eat them, but knowing that they're eating them and watching them and how much they enjoy them, it's an amazing thing. So hopefully I've secured a future generation by doing that.
Oh, for sure. That's the coolest part for me too. My oldest he's turning 5 this summer, so last year he came on a couple little small trips out to the mountains with me, and he's so stoked about hunting. Every time I go out and put camo on, he's like, "Dad, can I come with you?" And or 2 seasons ago, I guess he would have been 3, but he would sit by us on the skinning table when we were outfitting and watch us skin bears, and he just loved it. It's so cool to see that.
That is awesome. That's really cool. My middle child is like that. My oldest isn't so much. She says she will never shoot a deer, but she will. She goes, I don't have a problem taking turkeys or squirrels or rabbits. So we could do that, Dad. And I said, that's fine. Whatever you want to do, I'll take you. So that's pretty cool that she still shows interest. She just doesn't want to shoot a deer. And I think I partially blame Disney and my wife because they watched Bambi the other day and, sheds a negative light on hunters, but she's still okay with the hunting. So I'm not gonna push it.
Around,
Yeah. So, I'm kind of curious though. So you started hunting, you ended up buying into an outfitting service.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, okay, now you're a bear hunter. How did that go?
Well, I mean, flying into the outfitter, you get fully immersed in bear hunting overnight. Like I go from never seeing or shooting a bear in the wild and till the first week of outfitting, and I see like I don't know how many bears in the wild alive, and then at least probably half a dozen harvested ones that we're skinning and getting right in there, harvesting the meat. And so I got fully immersed into bear hunting in like just a tidal wave. It was not a slow introduction. It was probably the fastest way you can get introduced to something.
Was it overwhelming at times, or I mean, was it almost too much to take in, or did you just try and just be a sponge and take it all in if you could and roll with it?
Yeah, exactly. I love that kind of stuff. That's partially why we moved halfway across the country to start a dairy farm, and I had no experience doing that either. But I love a challenge, so this was the next challenge for me, and it was fun. I love learning new things, and it was being part of hunting, and the best part of outfitting is seeing other guys being able to harvest bears, and their emotions and them coming up from all of our hunters are Americans. And so they'll come up from a place some of these guys have never seen a bear in the wild before, and we get to take them out in the woods on a quad and they're harvest the bear after 1 or 2 or 3 days, and their emotions are running so high when they shoot that bear, and you go in and track it with them, and they're hugging you and crying, and that's the coolest feeling, man.
That's awesome. Not only being able to do it yourself, but to take that many other people out and especially to give them success. That's a pretty cool feeling.
That's the best.
I've taken people out and tried to get them on things, and it's so hard depending on skill level and, let alone my skill level, which, isn't, I wouldn't consider myself, a top tier killer of animals of any sorts, but, I can tend to get it done, but it's always easier when you're by yourself than trying to take somebody else out. So that's pretty cool that you guys do that and get them the success rate that they have, especially within 1 to 2 days. So then, I mean, how much bear hunting did you actually get to do on your own? Because it probably wasn't that much because you were so busy with, guiding and doing all that kind of stuff, outfitting.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you just kind of?
I've been part of. I was trying to figure it out the other day how many bear hunts I've been a part of, and I somewhere around 80 bear hunts that I've been a part of, and maybe seen around like 60 to 70 bears harvested, and I've actually only shot 2 bears myself in the last couple of years. So it's interesting. To be honest, I prefer taking other people out hunting than almost over hunting myself. Like 2 years ago, I had a cousin that had never been hunting before, and I took him out in BC in the mountains and got him into bear hunting, and we had never shot anything that year, but he took his first deer this past season. But that part of bringing someone new and getting them out in the woods and getting, like, we stalked up on this massive bear. Like, I've never seen a black bear this big. We got within 300 yards and he couldn't even hold still. He was going to try go for a shot, but his gun was just going everywhere. Emotions are too high. I just love it. That's so cool.
That's awesome though, because even though he didn't take that animal, which would probably spoil him anyway, because I mean, had he really paid his dues at that point, you know what? There's some people where they go out and their first time out, they shoot, a buck of somebody else's lifetime, and then they
Yeah.
almost expect that every time, when in reality, when you go out by yourself and you don't know that much, that is not the case. I mean, I went 4 years, I think, without ever taking a deer with my bow, and I was only a bow hunter at first, so I
Okay.
mean, the odds were stacked against me, and then it took me like 4 years before I ever took my first deer. So, I mean, that's reality for the most part, unless you have
Yeah,
somebody
exactly.
really taking you out there and putting you on them. So that's pretty cool that, but he didn't get that bear, but he saw that bear. So now it put that fire in him and he
Well,
felt those
absolutely.
emotions. He knew those emotions. He could sit,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something that's going to live with him. Like I remember my first buck that I ever drew back on, and I'll never forget that. And honestly, it was probably one of the biggest bucks that I've still seen to this day. One of, and I totally blew it. Totally blew it. Missed him twice. He was gone. Never saw him again. But the
Yeah.
fact that that happened, it's etched in my mind forever. And
Oh yeah.
and it's a learning point. And now you got to control those emotions. It's really cool to have that happen like that. So either
Oh,
way, I'm sure that's fueled a fire for him.
absolutely. Yeah, that's funny that you say that about paying your dues. We took my oldest son fishing this past summer, and he had that. Like, we bought him this little fishing rod for his birthday, and we took him out, and like the very first cast, he catches a fish, and it's like, dude, this is not how fishing goes.
Totally
But
get
now,
it.
now he thinks fishing is catching. So next year we're gonna have to wean him off of that belief.
Yeah, I took my girls ice fishing for the first time the other day, and there was more snow angels and figure skating competitions with their boots, not no actual skates, but figure
Yeah.
skating competitions, snow angels on the snow. Than there actually was fishing. I think there was maybe about by the time I got done drilling the holes and sat them down to fish, without with them playing and everything, maybe a half hour of actual fishing with the line in the water, and then they go, "Well, we're not catching anything. My feet are cold. Let's go." And the catalyst of it all was the fact that my youngest or the middle child, she goes, "I really want some hot cocoa, Dad," and I forgot the thermos in the truck.
Oh,
And that was
shucks.
where it all went downhill from there. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm sorry. Let's just go. So, but at least I got them out there. They had more fun playing
Yeah.
than they did actually fishing, and that's okay
Oh, for sure.
because we still got them out there and it exposed them to it. So maybe next
Exactly.
time we'll catch the fish. That's the goal. That's the goal. Hopefully
That's
tomorrow.
awesome.
Hopefully tomorrow we're going to do that.
Nice. How cold is it by you right now?
It's not too bad right now. Last week we were negatives every night or almost every night. And I don't know. I think it's probably in mid 20s right now, Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still below freezing.
Yep, still below freezing, and we've got, which is pretty rare for us this time of year, but we actually have like a solid 10 inches of ice, maybe 11.
Okay.
So that's
Huh.
some pretty good ice for around here. And then
Nice.
now it's got snow on it, so it'll be insulated, and hopefully it stays even if it
Yeah.
warms up. So
Longer. Cool.
yeah. So how about you? You probably got feet, right?
No, actually, we're right here in like the southwestern corner of British Columbia. It's like this is as warm as it gets in Canada, pretty much. It's today it was like 10 degrees above freezing and sunny. Like it's pretty much springtime here, man.
Oh wow,
We
that's too warm.
could get some cold weather yet in February, but people are starting to like it's almost like springtime around here. We got green grass, it's starting to come alive already. It's crazy.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you drive 1 hour into the mountains and it's full winter, but
So is it
here
because
in
you're
the
more
valley,
coastal, right?
yeah, we're like the closest ocean is like 45 minutes from here.
Okay.
So it's not far, yeah, for sure.
So you're getting those warm air coming off the. All
Yeah,
right.
we got a lot of rain time of
Okay.
year.
All right. So, kind of curious then, like, it developed into that. You still only taking two bears. Let's talk about that though. Let's talk about like your experience taking those bears and how it solidified obviously the passion for bears and then we'll go into kind of what you started and why.
Yeah. Well, so the first bear I took was I think it was the now I'm gonna get them the dates mixed up, but I think it was the year after we started outfitting, and it was a couple miles down the road from the farm that we owned. We didn't own it anymore at that point in time, but it was on one of my friends' properties. They own a couple thousand acres of grain land, and yeah, it was with a rifle, and but I got within about 10 yards of it. I was just driving down the road. We were actually just doing crop checks, and I seen this bear in this field that I'd been hunting. I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. I never seen them when I'm actually sitting here. And so it was like it was way out there on the far side of the field. So I had to stalk in and get close to it. So I've never actually done a baited hunt, which is the only way to hunt in Manitoba, supposedly, but I didn't do it. So I'm kind of proud of myself for that fact.
That's pretty cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
So on like the baited because it's so thick, right? That's kind of the
Yeah.
reason. So you were on
And,
what's that?
and flat. That's the problem.
Okay.
There's no hills. You can't get up anywhere to do any glassing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
That's
then
our biggest problem in Manitoba.
your second bear was taken in BC then?
Yes, sir.
And how did that
Yep.
go?
That was in the valley here, and on the edge between public land and private land. We were hunting on the edge of agriculture land, and we had set up for I don't know how many nights. It was a spring bear, and me and my buddy had been sitting there like every day after work for I don't know how many weeks it was, but we had trail cams in there, and we patterned these things, and they were doing all over the place because it was weird weather this past spring, and so yeah, it was about I think close to 300 yards again. I love long range shooting, so that's why all these long shots. That's my thing. So
No, that's totally cool. I like it too. I just
yeah.
I've never really pushed it out. I don't have anywhere to push it out further than
Oh yeah.
like 800. So, but
Okay.
if I did, I would definitely be shooting longer. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll finish the bear story first, but so yeah, that I took my first bear in the edge of a grass field, and it was like I said, the border of public and private land. Um, so that was super cool this spring, and I got to have my boys with me when I did that, and got to have them part of that whole experience. And I can't wait till my boys grow up a little more, and I can take them out every time and show them hunting and get them to take their first animal. They're not allowed until they're 12 up here, but they'll come with me on a lot of trips before that.
No, that's totally cool. That's awesome that you're doing it and that they got to experience that too. So how
Oh yeah.
about like deer or bear or moose or done any of that yet or other than
Yeah, I've
other than
well,
the one deer, sorry.
yeah, no, similar story to yours actually. I've gone out the last 4 years in a row looking for mule deer, and this year I was bow hunting them for the first time, and I got within like 30 yards probably, but it was in this thick forest on a ridge way up. I was hunting by myself, and I drew back on it. It was a beautiful, like a big 3-point muley, and I would have been so stoked to shoot that thing, but I could never get a clear shot, so I had to let it go. It was so sad.
It's discouraging, but at the same time, you know that those experiences are in the end result they're making you a better hunter. You're learning
Oh
the
yeah.
discipline, you're learning when to draw back and potentially, waiting until its head gets behind a certain branch, draw back and wait till he steps
Yep.
out. I mean, that's all part of it, and it's cool to develop those skills even though I try to never look at them as, you know, losses or missed opportunities. I always try and look at them as, knowledge gained or lessons learned. Because if you look at them as mistakes, you look at yourself as a failure, and you're not a failure. It's just you're trying to move forward, and the only way to move forward is to recognize them and learn from it. So
Yeah, for sure. And Like me and all my friends that I hunt with, actually, none of us grew up hunting, which is really strange. So we've only ever been hunting for the last like 4 or 5 years. So we're still like brand new hunters pretty much. So we've got a lot to learn yet.
That's cool though.
But
So you've got a
that's
support
all part
group.
of it.
You got kind of
Yeah.
got a crew of guys that you go with then.
Yeah, for sure. You the same 4 or 5 guys in different selections, but yeah, we usually hunt together.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
definitely fun. Lately, I've been kind of a soloist. And sometimes it's easier than you don't ever have to try and coordinate or figure out anything. You just go.
Oh
And
yeah.
you want to change your mind or move, you just do it, and you don't have to worry about anybody else or leaving them behind or anything. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
How far do you have to go to hunt from where you live?
So where I live, I have all kinds of hunting ground, probably 7 or 8 different public land pieces that I can hit within a half hour, maybe
Cool.
40 minutes. But I
Okay.
don't hunt any of them
Oh,
because a lot of times they're crowded. Deer numbers
yeah.
actually aren't that good because they do a lot of culling to
Mm,
try and prevent chronic waste, or so they
yeah.
say. I'm not saying that chronic waste doesn't exist, but the amount of deer that they take and I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Maybe they really are doing it. I don't know, but I think sometimes insurance companies have a lot to do with some of that stuff, unfortunately. Um,
I see.
and I've seen evidence to kind of back that up, but um,
Interesting.
nonetheless, I don't really hunt those properties much because they are crowded, and I find that a lot of people from the cities they drive an hour to come down and hunt them.
I
So,
see.
in turn, if they're driving an hour or an hour and a half to come down and hunt them, I figured, you know what? Let them have it. I'll go find other
Yeah.
places. So I found some other places, and I've actually found way better odds of success and better deer in some of those areas. So that's kind of what I started going with. So to answer your
Nice.
question, sometimes 2 hours,
Okay.
sometimes longer. I do have my buddy does have a property that I went and did get to hunt this year and did take a doe, um, and that was like 6.5 hours. But
Oh,
and I mean, we stayed the night, we camped and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff in his deer camp and everything. So it was a different
Cool.
experience. I'm not normally used to that, having somebody's property to hunt like that. But
Yeah. All right on. That's cool.
yeah, it was neat though, and I think more than anything, I think it's cool to know that I'll be able to go back, but not necessarily for me, but for my children. So they'll have a place to where they can actually have success and solidify their future in hunting because,
Yeah.
they get that experience and they do get that kill. I'm not saying they're not going to put in their dues, but at the same time, it's just good knowing that you have a place like that to go to for them. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by overpriced wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I heard that Mint Mobile wireless plans are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they sell wireless service online. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
So have you ever hunted moose yet?
We tried 2 winters ago. We went for like a 10-day trip, and it was the funnest trip, but the most chaotic trip ever. It was a 12-hour drive to where we were hunting, and I pulled my trailer up there with 8 buddies, and we all went our separate ways when we were actually hunting. But the first night we got there, it snowed about like 16 or 18 inches, and our trailer was stuck up where we had parked it. So it turned into a rescue mission rather than a hunting trip. So
That's
we
fun.
didn't actually get much hunting in that trip, but we flipped the trailer and my truck into the ditch and had to borrow an excavator to pull it out. And it was quite the experience.
Oh my. Oh my.
Yeah, it was great.
So we might as well start talking about it because we could probably talk hunting forever and all that good stuff. But owning the outfitting business and taking those two bears that you took, you realized there was a need not only to hunt them and preserve them, but protect them, and ensure that they're managed properly. So you started your coffee company, as you said earlier, Bear Beans. And so let's talk about that, like the mission statement going into it, why you did it, how, it all came about, the passion, the drive, the fuel behind it, and then kind of what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah, for sure. So with the whole COVID thing, the last couple of years, our outfitter's been shut down since the beginning when the borders were closed, and thankfully, it looks like people can start coming up again this year. But in the past year and a half or so, I was thinking of ways how we can stay involved with bear hunting because I love it so much, and I'm an entrepreneur by heart. So anything I can do to start a new project or do anything like that, and this, I don't remember how I came up with the idea, but of starting a coffee company, but it it slowly morphed into an idea into reality, and what I wanted to do is have a company that gives back to conservation, and now I've kind of committed to myself and my wife with me that we're never going to be part of anything that doesn't have some benefit to some community or other. So with this one, it's the hunting community, and our other businesses we try to benefit people and other things. But so I wasn't going to do it unless there was some way to give back with the business, and it's so cool, man. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, getting to partner with all of these organizations like Blood Origins and the Western Bear Foundation and Howl for Wildlife. Now that it's a super cool platform that is bringing hunters together to help each other out on regulatory issues around the country, or around your country, I should say. They're not doing anything in Canada yet, but I'm sure that time will come. But
Hopefully.
yeah,
Like we talked about a little bit earlier, hopefully, people are starting to really start supporting each other in other ways and trying to preserve freedom. So I think that's pretty cool, and hopefully it does happen. And you could see it right now, especially in the United States, that there's so many attacks. I was just talking, in fact, earlier this week, I was talking with Howl for Wildlife, and we were talking about just, I've never seen in my lifetime. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying, social media obviously makes the word travel faster and we're able to connect with each other. But I can't remember a time in my life to where there was so many attacks on hunting all at once across the board. And it seems like it's almost a daily occurrence where something is happening, where somebody's trying to take something away, whether it be bear and lynx, bobcat, whatever. It's happening more and more and more and more, to the point to where it's just going to be a death by 1,000 cuts, and we need to band together, whether we're in a different country or not, and support each other and preserve our hunting rights before they're gone and the wildlife is managed improperly.
Exactly.
So
for sure, and that's why it's so cool to be part of something like this, where I think now is the time when we really need to get together, and to be able to do a small part in making that happen is just the coolest thing for me. And like talking with Charles from Howl for Wildlife, and the guys at Blood Origins are doing an amazing job of spreading the real story about hunting and not what some people say about us. And it's unreal to be part of that whole drive to come together. It's
so
awesome.
Bear Beans, you guys sell coffee, and in turn, a portion of your profits go to different organizations that support bears and wildlife, right?
Yep.
So what are these organizations, and how do they, protect them? What's kind of the stuff that happens?
So the first one that we ever started dealing with was the Western Bear Foundation. Joe Candelas runs that, and they provide money for projects to bear research and like habitat management, garbage cleanup in the backwoods and that type of stuff, and also education about bear hunting and conservation. And the other organizations are all do similar things. Blood Origins is more of a storytelling organization where Robbie and Cody, they share hunting stories from around the world. And I mean, they also tell bear hunting stories. So that's why I just love the stories that they tell, and they're super amazing at it. And Robbie has a cool voice, so that helps too.
That he does. Sometimes very dramatic. At times it really plays into the story, but
Yeah, for sure.
nonetheless, it's pretty cool. So you guys work with these organizations and you give a percentage of the profits to them. I think it was listed on the website, right? The actual percentage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, we give 10% of profit to, and we split it up over those different organizations. And like we're trying to get more partnerships, but like we have with Howl for Wildlife right now, where all of the people that take an action on their site, they get a link directly to our website for anything that they purchase. Then they get a 10% discount, and that 10% automatically goes to Howl for Wildlife back to the organization, so they can keep spreading the word and bringing hunters together.
no, that's really cool. That is amazing that you're doing that. And not only is it, they've got organizations like 2% for conservation, but the fact that you're going further than that and saying, no, we're going to give 10%. I mean, that's a hefty sum of the profit margin. But you can tell that, there is a passion there. There is a drive there that you want to protect it. And that really says something that you're putting up that much to do that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool to see that you guys are doing it. So let's talk about the coffees. I mean, what kind of coffees do you offer, and what are they? We don't have to go too deep because, as we talked about earlier, I am probably a bigger coffee snob than you, but nonetheless, I'm sure it's good coffee. So let's kind of get into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we got the dark roast, which comes from Sumatra, and that's about all I know about it. But and then we got two like medium light roasts. One comes from Ethiopia, and the other one is, I believe, from El Salvador. And those ones are also amazing. I mean, I'm not a coffee snob like yourself, so I can't say if it's amazing or not with all certainty. But we have friends in Manitoba, a guy that he actually reminds me a lot of you, and he's also a big coffee snob, and he said those coffees are top notch. So I took his word for it.
When I saw that it was Ethiopian, the first thing that came to my mind was like a Yirgacheffe that was, there were some that I've had that were absolutely just phenomenal, and they were actually dried and then washed, hand washed. It just different processes. Like the dry process is super amazing, and but there's some really, really good coffees that come out of Ethiopia. And that I feel like that's going to be interesting, especially that one was like the medium roast, I believe, or was it the dark roast? So it's going to bring out a lot of those like caramel flavors and just the really good stuff from the coffee. Maybe it's because I love chocolate, and that's like one of my biggest weaknesses and vices. But I got to say, I think my favorite is when you get those tones, those like almost like oaky chocolatey tones with like a hint of caramel in the finish, something real silky and smooth to where it just kind of carries on. Those notes are the ones that just like, I'm like, wow, that's good. That's a good cup of coffee. And anybody who puts creamer in coffee, just know this. If it's a good cup of coffee and it's brewed properly, it does not need creamer because the coffee will speak for itself. That's like putting a bunch of seasonings, Montreal seasoning on steak. It doesn't need it. The meat will do the talking if you cook it right.
Well, it's like you were saying before. I mean, all I've ever drank is stale coffee, or what you call stale coffee. And we got our first. We had like 10 different samples of coffee that we had to choose from when we were doing our first batches, and the ones that we chose were the three that we have now. But yeah, that was the first time where I enjoyed just a coffee with nothing in it.
Did you go to a cupping?
No, I didn't.
Oh
No, I researched all the best ways to do it, and we made good coffee as good coffee as I can make at home.
AeroPress? Did you use an AeroPress?
No,
You got to
no.
try an AeroPress. If you have not used an AeroPress, you need to get yourself one, because that is the best thing you can do without an actual espresso machine.
Mm-hmm.
That just takes it to the next level, and it's portable. It's lightweight. If you're backpacking or hunting and you're backpack hunting, or even at base camp, that will make you an amazing, unless you bring a pour over, but it will make you an amazing cup of coffee.
Nice.
I am not even sure exactly the science behind it, but it puts out a phenomenal cup of coffee. And I drink an Americano, so I make the espresso and just add a couple shots of water to it. I don't do half and half, but I like it a little rich and make my heart come close to exploding, but without actually doing it. But that is just some phenomenal coffee, and that's what kind of piqued my interest when I was looking at the website, and I was like actually looking at the coffee. I'm like, these seem like legit coffees of origin, and the flavor profile that they give, like, seemed like, I was like, okay, I'm excited. So I bought a new grinder. I ordered 3 bags, just so you know, one of each roast profile. And
Perfect.
my plan is, because I don't roast that much at home, and honestly, the coffee at work is crap. And so every time I drink it there, I have to put creamer in there. And I'm getting a little heavy. I'm getting a little soggy around the midsection right now, and I don't need to be. So I realized, I'm like, man, I need to cut out the creamer. So it's just calories I don't need, where I could use them somewhere else and actually get something that's, a better, caloric intake than coffee creamer. So I'm almost ashamed to admit that I drank coffee creamer, being a coffee snob, but nonetheless I did, because it was garbage coffee. So I have your coffee, and I'm going to leave them in my drawer at work, and every morning I'm going to roast a cup and know that I contributed to conservation, and not just 2% of my funds, but 10% of my funds went to conservation for bears, which is a good thing. So just know that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to take it. And I bought my own separate grinder, so I'm going to grind it fresh every morning, so I won't have stale coffee. And I'm going to use the AeroPress. And I even thought about maybe buying like a Chemex, like a pour over type setup, so I could do that at work at my at my desk. Do that.
That's awesome.
But so
I appreciate it.
So yeah,
and
that's
look forward to your feedback.
Yeah, so that's what's going to happen. And just so everybody knows, I'll probably already have drank a cup before this episode comes out. So if it doesn't air, or I leave negative comments in the show notes, just know that's because it was terrible coffee. But I'm kidding. It won't be. So we don't have to worry about that at all. It definitely sounds like it's good coffee. And if you know a friend that is a coffee snob, he can truthfully tell you that it's nothing like what you would ever get at a Tim Hortons. And
No. Even I could tell that, and that
that's good.
I did do quite a bit of shopping around before I chose a guy to go with, like a roaster to go with. And like you were saying earlier off the air, there's a lot of just random things you can go with where they'll just ship you some stale coffee. But I made sure that it was like a specialty type coffee, and I got all the samples beforehand and sent those samples to someone that actually knew what they were talking about. So, because I'm not a coffee snob, but I didn't want to sell shitty coffee.
Absolutely. Nobody needs crap coffee. Let that be a lesson to everybody, that there are better things than Folgers in your cup. That's not the best part of waking up. I can promise you that. But maybe some bear beans. Maybe you guys could just steal the probably trademarked slogan and use it. But anyway, so what's the future plans? I mean, what's the plans for the company, the coffee? What's the plans for the outfitter? And what's your hunting plans for coming up here?
So I'll start with the outfitter. It looks like this season is gonna be pretty good. We're fully booked up, and we'll have to see how many of those guys actually make it across the border. But if they do, then hopefully we'll have a full camp this year. And we gave away a hunt through Bear Beans actually over Christmas, and Chad Heflin from Marshfield Outdoors in Virginia is coming out to do that hunt. So I'm going to come guide him, and that's in September, I believe, and that's going to be super awesome. But other than that, hopefully it's a full camp, and Brandon's going to do a super awesome running the show there, and we're doing a bit of whitetail, trying to get into whitetail. It's a totally separate area from our bear hunting area, so it's kind of hard to manage it logistically, but we're trying to get away from being stuck with only bears. I mean, not stuck with only bears, but diversify a little bit on the outfitting side of things. So that's the plan for this year.
Cool.
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, cool. That's cool that you're expanding into the whole whitetail thing. I mean,
yeah,
that's going to be like guided whitetail hunts for Manitoba whitetails then.
Yeah, exactly. Because our bear season is kind of over. The bears start to go into hibernation a bit early. Like our season goes almost till December, but there's no bears around then. And if they are, they're not interested in coming to bait or anything like that. They're looking to find a place to hide, and it's nearly impossible to hunt them late in the season. So we only go for the first month and a half or so of fall bear season.
Interesting. So what's the plans with the coffee? Any other roasts coming out anytime soon or anything like that yet? Or
Yeah, actually, we're trying to, what I'm trying to do now is to get a good decaf out. And I don't know if you'd be interested in being one of my guinea pigs, but trying to get a good decaf going so that we have that option too.
That'll be interesting. Nonetheless, it would be interesting. I'm not going to comment yet, but so what I got to ask you though before we go any further, what's your favorite like color phase of bears? Because like something has always just intrigued me about like a cinnamon or like a blonde phase bear, and I've always wanted to get just like a massive boar that's just like cinnamon colored or color phase boar. I don't know what it is, just because it doesn't seem like a black bear to me, and that's always like that is one of my number one, like if I ever go get a bear, like just a giant boar, I just pray that he's just a big like color phase bear. What's like to you? What's like the ultimate? Is it like a jet black bear, or what's your favorite like color phase of bears?
Well, the coolest color I've ever seen was 2 years ago. One of our hunters shot it was a color phase. It was like brown, but it was almost red. It was kind of like golden, and I can't really explain it, but it had a red tinge to it, and that was the coolest color I've ever seen. Is like, I don't know, a mix between like a grizzly bear color and a fox, like somewhere in there. That's the best I can explain.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Color.
Yes, that is so cool. That is so cool. Was it a real big one too?
No, it wasn't massive, but it was still like, I think close to 300 pounds. So it was a good size one.
Nice.
But
my goal is to one day have a bear fur coat. And realistically, I'm never going to have a grizzly bear fur coat. It's just not in the cards. Like that's not happening in my lifetime unless something has a massive pivotal shift to where all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to Kodiak Island. And, it's just unrealistic for me at this phase with kids and as many kids and everything. It's just maybe someday, but I kind of doubt it because it seems like the price is only going up. And by the time I'm probably in that position to do it, let's be realistic. It'll probably be like $180,000 or higher hunt for a grizzly. So I'm just really hoping I can get a cool color phase black bear one day, but we'll see.
Oh yeah. No, everyone or a lot of people are like that. They're looking for that color phase, and we all have them in some areas, and some provinces up here in Canada have more than others, and even some little pockets in some provinces are higher in color phase, but we have them too. It's just really hard. Some guys will come and say like, I'm only going to shoot a color phase. I'm like, well, sorry, man, like we can't guarantee that I'm going to be cruising through this spot on your day.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm not saying I'd come up and only shoot a color phase, but obviously, I'd shoot a bear. But I just think it'd really be really cool to get a coat that would look like a grizzly fur coat, But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's my goal.
Nice. Well, I'll say one thing, that the next couple years, we're going to have a lot of massive bears being shot because there's been no hunting for 2 years on the outfitting side of things. So the bear populations are just exploding up there. Like on camera, we got bears coming out of our ears and some giants. So I'm excited for this spring.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So,
Oh, yeah.
Will, before we go, I'm going to ask you where everybody can find you as the outfitter, as the coffee company, and all your social media platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Bear Track Outfitters on Instagram and bearbeans.coffee also on Instagram. And our website for the outfitter is beartrackoutfitters.com. And it's also bearbeans.com for the coffee. And I think that's about it.
Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences and your passion and love for conservation and bears and the cool stuff that you guys are doing. So bearbeans.com, get yourself some coffee, support conservation and bears.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on. It's always great to talk about bear hunting and conservation. And it was great chatting with you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.